I think traditionally we would think if something is being shown on the news, that is going to shape opinions. But in reality, it's been shown that people's opinions are formed by their personal connections with other people. Can you speak to that a little bit?
So that's a study from the 1940s. And what it looked at some women in Decatur, Illinois. There was a presidential election that was happening around that time. As people in the community were talking about how they formed political opinions, what they were saying to the researchers is that it wasn't what was coming to them through their media consumption that was most influential to them. It was who they were talking to. And there were a handful of women in the community who were really, really plugged into what was happening on the media. And then they would sit there and they would talk with their friends about it. They would talk in their communities. So this is how it happens, right? It's not necessarily what you read in the newspaper or what you hear on television. It's like mediated through this second step. That's where the two-step comes from. So the two-step flow is somebody in media says it, your influential opinion leader is the term that the researchers give to these influential women. And then you are forming your opinions in part based on how that opinion leader is mediating that information for you. So you're not necessarily hearing something on TV and magically changing your opinion. It's much more through this process of somebody that I trust, somebody that I like, somebody who's just like me, somebody who's in the community is making this opinion formation process happen with me. And that's the difference between the old way of thinking about it, which was called the hypodermic needle model, which was you see this information and magically, as if you've been injected, your opinion just changes. And that's not how you actually form opinions. A lot of people think that that's how it happens to people they don't like, right? They think like, oh, well, those people over there, they watch Fox News and then bam, they've changed their minds, right? But what's actually happening is much more this process of like acculturation. Like they hear it, they talk about it, they're talking about it with their friends. All of their community feels this way, thinks this way, talks about it at church. And so there's much more this cultural component. And if you think about how, you hear something crazy on the news, it doesn't magically change your mind. So this idea that it would magically change somebody else's mind is sort of wrong, but we tend to think that way anyway.
What makes somebody more influential in their community?
In the study that they were doing, it was actually just that they had a lot of friends. They were just very much plugged in. They talked to a lot of people. They were, there are just certain people in a community who I think are highly relatable, very charismatic. You had that in that offline model of socialization, maybe, before we were all on the internet. And then if you were to port that into the age of social media, this is where you start to see that figure of the influencer emerge, right? The people who, have that and do it kind of at scale.